I'm Ruben.
Right?
I'm Ken. Nice to meet you, Ruben.
To move to next
Hi,
slide.
Gabriel.
Hi, Gabriel.
Pleasure.
I'm Ken.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Katie. Nice to meet you.
I'm Ken.
Nice to meet you.
Hi, Elba. Hi, Katie. Nice to meet you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hi. Nice to meet you.
All right.
Oh, are we gonna just put it off? Okay.
Good morning. As young adults in college, we're in our trial run of the real world. We're over 18, yet under 25, and can ride out on our parents' healthcare insurance just a little longer.
And now that school's starting, I need to submit proof of my immunizations, but I can't even begin to think where they are at the big stack of papers at my parents' house.
For me, I get new glasses every year, and I can never find what my prescription is because I've changed providers so many times throughout the year.
I lost my vaccine card 2 days after I got it. It was a nuisance.
As you can see, we all have different problems, however they stem from the same core issue, fragmented record keeping that's preventing us from getting the care that we need. However, we believe that we have a solution and we're excited to share this new opportunity. I'm joined here today by KT, Ruben, and Gabriel to share this. Introducing DropDoc. DropDoc is a digital file management tool for doctor documents and includes this high-level overview of two key components, telehealth and localization, which are going to have a lasting impact. Now, how did we determine that DropDoc would be the best solution? Well, this brings us to our agenda. First, we conducted market analyses. Next, we determined our strategy of DropDoc. And finally, we implemented the project considering the timeline and risks and implementation of this. First of all, we have our market analysis. We decided to dive into two key markets of focus, cloud computing and telehealth. In the cloud computing market, we can see that a large player against Dropbox is going to be Google Drive and the G Suite platforms. Here you can see that in the beginning of COVID-19, Google Drive had 1.2 billion active users, while Dropbox had 700 million users. Moving into currently and after the pandemic, you can see that Google Drive had a large increase to 2 billion users. Now, we can assume that industry-wide we'd see something similar with Dropbox, right? Well, Dropbox increased to only 710 million users. 710 million? How did Dropbox drop the ball on this awesome opportunity? So, looking into the telehealth market, we decided to dive into this as our second portion of our market analysis, as we wanted to find other markets that were growing just as rapidly as cloud computing. So taking a look at the telehealth market, we can see that pre-pandemic, 11% of consumers use telehealth, and this shifted to 76% post-pandemic. Therefore, telehealth is a rapidly growing market and serves as a great opportunity for a possible partnership. However, there's going to be some challenges to scale, such as a need for better data integration, laws and regulations surrounding entering a new country with different laws surrounding record keeping, such as the other countries' equivalents to HIPAA in the US, as well as the fact that currently telehealth utilizes a variety of smaller platforms, so there's no centralized place for record keeping. We've determined that there's an opportunity for telehealth and Dropbox to partner to solve each other's issues. Here you can see our competitor landscape, and there are a lot of competitors in the large and integrated space that are not tailored to local privacy laws, as well as some that are very tailored, however, they're not large and they aren't quite integrated. Obviously, there's a gap in the market. And so we believe that this gap is going to be a key demand for a cloud computing platform that stores medical records and is large, integrated, and tailored to local privacy laws. Thus, there's going to be demand for DropDoc.
Perfect. Let's get into it. So, DropDoc includes two main prongs, telehealth as well as localization. First, we're going to talk about telehealth. I'm very excited to introduce to you DropDoc, which is a digital file management system for doctor documents. Before I talk about exactly what that is, here's a decision matrix that shows us how we came to that conclusion. So with the 4 pillars that we thought were the most important for our plan, impact, profitability, implementation, and globalization, we compared 3 other ideas that we talked strenuously about: sustainability, file conversion features, and receipt automation. But compared, DropDoc beats them all. We wanted to solve the problem of storage, right? A lot of competitors offer a storage platform, but we want to transform Dropbox into a storage service. Because of COVID and the ever-growing changing world of being more digitalized, we see the importance of digitalizing files for both the back end and the front end. So providers and consumers will save a lot of time and money by digitalizing their files and having a very easy record-keeping system. Most importantly, Dropbox has the infrastructure, the global infrastructure that other competitors don't have, such as Google Drive, that can create a secure platform for medical practitioners and consumers to trust. Let's talk a little bit more about telehealth. Because it is remote healthcare, it can decrease exposure to diseases as well as surges in clinics and hospitals. Here are some examples of the telehealth companies that we might be partnering with. It's actually known that patients who read their health notes are more likely to take their medications as prescribed. Telehealth visits in 2020 also increased 63 times because of COVID. And that's why you see here, as the story we mentioned in the beginning, that the medical records vary from places to places. So that's why it's so important to have the information we need at the time that we need, which is why our plan of DropDoc will be the sole provider and the first one to be up for all their record-keeping needs. Let me tell you how it works. So the provider will upload automatically the appointment notes and health notes medication records straight into your DropDoc account. You can access it anytime, anywhere. You don't have to create the folders. They're automated and created, organized for you. Because of their implementation of Dropbox into their phone already, because of their medical records, they're going to be using Dropbox for all of their other daily needs, which will increase B2C sales. Here's some key features that I would love to mention. The uniformity of personal files, auto-updating folders by category, as well as access to family members. I don't need to call my mom to know when my last flu shot was anymore. Some key takeaways. Our focus on B2B will establish dominance in a rising industry, while also increasing sales in the B2C sector, which answers charge 1. Secondly, it differentiates us from the competition through an automated service, which answers charge 2. Most importantly, we think that it provides equitable access to healthcare at the tip of your fingertips.
Now we will move into the globalization of our telehealth service. Dropbox is already a global company, and now we will utilize that strength to use and have globally tailored services. Over 75% of Dropbox's users are now outside of the US and growing. Recently, there have been key distribution partnerships with partners such as SoftBank, Vodafone, and Telmex. These partnerships have allowed consumers to interact with Dropbox in different ways, but most importantly, it has given us the strength of entering new geolinguistic markets and being able to offer more personalized services. As stated by Chen-Li Wang, the head of operations and product, it's not just about the product working, it's the fact that we offer excellent support to solve your problems. And we have been solving our customers' problems successfully, as you can see through our increasing revenue internationally. Year over year, we have seen increasing numbers of customers from international, and we cannot ignore this fact. We must tailor and meet their needs. Thus, we know and we have learned that consumers have chose us because of our cloud privacy and data protections. As given an accolade by the International Organization for Standardization, we received the highest award in cloud privacy and data protections. This has created trust amongst our relationships with our consumers. As you can see here, our current data centers are in the US, Europe, and Asia. This is why we have been able to provide that safe and secure information protection in those markets, but we have seen and identified huge gaps in potential markets such as Latin America and Africa. Therefore, we have chosen to pursue a strategy of building new data centers in Manaus, Brazil, and Lagos, Nigeria, to enter the Latin American and African market, to be able to securely store our consumers' data in the markets they live in. But most importantly, as we know, COVID has changed the face of work forever. With DropDoc becoming a digital-first company, with our company-wide policy of working from home and being able to work where you want and serve the customers in the market that you live in, we will have a global integrated workforce. We will also benefit from being able to have diversified talent acquisitions to be able to tap talent from different markets around the world in the markets we serve. And most of all, this will create greater cultural competencies among our employees and with our customers. This strategy of being a digital-first company through our employees will allow us to successfully enter these new markets. Now, our key takeaways. Because of our growing global customer base, we have identified and we will take advantage of these new opportunities to enter new markets. And through our digital-first workforce, we will successfully enter those markets. That will be able to allow us to maintain and strengthen, most importantly, our position as a globally trusted company.
So, South America, Africa, the entire new healthcare sector, this is a pretty ambitious project, even for a company the scale of Dropbox. So let's talk about the implementation of it and how it's actually going to look. So it will take us a year and a half before we can first roll out this product, and another 6 months after that until we can have both of these data centers online. You might notice here we've staggered the production of those 2 data facilities, and there's a reason for that. First of all, Brazil is a lot easier to develop in than Lagos, Nigeria at the moment. Right? The political economy in the area makes it extremely favorable to develop. In fact, if you have your paperwork done, you can get shovels in the ground the same day that you submit your application. Right? The second reason that we want to do that is to spread out the capital intensity of this project. Now, we are a big company. We have $1.5 billion this year at the end of, I think, Q3 in cash and cash equivalents. So it's not the end of the world if we concentrated this. But we have to remember, we have other projects as Dropbox, and we're doing this in the interest of the entire company. So spreading out the capital intensity gives us room to pursue other projects. Right before the big rollout at the end of 2023, we're going to do something very important. We're hiring a team of 40 salespeople, elite tech salespeople, to push this project on the telehealth providers at the moment so that when the rollout happens, we can hit the ground running and have demand already. Once this rollout happens, our procedure is going to be pretty simple. It's going to do 2 things, expand and update. We're going to keep integrating this into the Dropbox universe and making sure that everything integrates seamlessly with your other Dropbox files. And we have to make sure that we update our privacy protocols because we're leveraging our global position to make sure that we can stay in compliance with various health privacy laws in different countries. So by updating and keeping track of the news, we can make sure that we still have this advantage. And further down the line, once people, patients and providers are both comfortable with Dropbox as a place for your medical documents, we think we can start pushing it to physical hospitals, into that realm. But that's some time from now. Of course, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. There are a couple considerations we have to make. In the interest of time, I'm going to talk about the second one here, which we think is the most important, skepticism among doctors specifically in staying compliant in their local laws. Israel is an interesting example of this. In 2020, by the way, we have an Israel location. In 2020, they passed a new data privacy law where the government is now entitled to request medical documents for research, albeit it can be de-identified. Now, if you're a doctor and you're in the interest of your patient's privacy, you might think, well, that's an issue. I don't necessarily want to surrender that. So we're going to hire a team of 10 cybersecurity professionals and implement a hashing algorithm process. And you can imagine this as a one-way street, right? You can input a file and have it come out the other end, and it is mathematically impossible to take it back. So you can de-identify these, remove the names, and make sure that you're staying in compliance while still protecting your clientele. And this is really important if we want to bypass this skepticism and make sure people trust us. That's important. Are we going to make money? Short answer is yes. Until 2024, we are going to see negative cash returns because building these data centers is pretty capital intensive, but as you can see, there's a nice looking growth trajectory coming in after that. I want to remind you guys, the telehealth industry is projected by most financial analysts to multiply itself several times over in the next decade. It's huge, it's growing, and it's an opportunity. For us, that means 2 main things. A 2-year payback period for this, and then huge growth afterwards, and a $50 million net present value. Of course, our long-term goal with this project isn't just money, but adding new users. We have calculated the network coefficient for this. It's 1.17. That means that we're going to add 50 million new users to our database, making sure that we are a long-lasting player, cementing ourselves as relevant going forward. So let's recap. We dropped the ball, our competitors got smart, and we didn't. And we're going to see telehealth as a new way for us to keep relevant into the future. 100 million people every year go into poverty because of medical debt. Telehealth cuts primary care costs to a fraction of what they are. And by being part of this telehealth industry, we can help save a lot of people from a lot of trauma. And we think that's a good thing. So thank you for your time. We are Team OLMECA.
Nice job.
Thank you.
We have a bunch of appendix slides if you're interested.
I'm just going to come right out and say, I have no idea if this is going to work, but I just love that you just grabbed onto something big, invented it, and said, we're going to do it. This is just bold, it's creative, it's high risk, high reward, and it's just really fun. I really think it was a very imaginative way to approach the problem. Medical data is different than all other data because it's governed by an alphabet soup of regulations that are different in every place around the world. How are you building in enough to really address that need above and beyond what Dropbox is already doing for data security and privacy?
Absolutely. That's why we chose this ambitious strategy of opening these data centers, because we do know that in different markets there's different regulations. Most importantly, even though data is not a physical thing, it is becoming a thing where you must stay in the market you're operating in. And so data centers, we've seen from multiple case studies, other companies are building their own data centers around the world. They can no longer rely on the globalization concept of importing and exporting data as if it were nothing physical. So yes, we do recognize that, and our idea is very ambitious, but we have the feasibility behind that.
So I have, I guess, two questions for you. You know, just even from reading the case, the markets where you currently are work partially want, well, GDP, you know, per capita, but the connectivity of internet. You're now looking at two markets that is such a challenge in, right? That's one thing. So I guess one question is how are we going to keep everything online in markets where, you know, broadband alone is still such a challenge? But two, how do you address the different generations? This is the first time in the world where we have literally 5 generations existing at the same time, and tech adoption is consistently and persistently the challenge, right? Grandma is like, if I don't get this in 2 clicks, I'm dropping the whole phone and I don't care. And she still wants to see a physical doctor. Y'all are like, what's a doctor? And you know, your tech adoption is far faster because you've grown up with technology. How do you address that, coupled also with, you know, dropping internet?
I think I can tackle this one.
And
So,
just to remember, most healthcare is consumed by old people.
well, addressing the first point about whether this is actually going to be able to impact people who don't have necessarily connection to internet. Dropbox is a purely digital company, and that was actually one of the risks that we referenced earlier. Put it up here so we can see it. This is unavoidable no matter what we do as Dropbox, because we're such a digital platform. And that Lagos, Nigeria particularly is an area where we see growing access to internet. I think over the last decade it's been a 60 or 70% increase. We found the number earlier, that these two areas are growing in their internet access fast, and it's actually growing at an exponentially faster rate. So we think that it is a growing market opportunity. Addressing the generational differences.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. That's a really great question. That's something that we definitely thought about with Dropbox, especially because there is an older generation that uses healthcare and has the need for healthcare as we get older. Oh, you can go back to the strategy slide for how it will work.
All right.
Yeah. So with our implementation of DropDoc, it actually solves the problem of not having more than 2 clicks. Because it is automated, all you need to do is, let's say like with our example of starting out into the telehealth industry, Like if they're seeing a doctor, the doctor will automatically, and the hospital will automatically upload everything they need into the folders that they need. So all they have to do is download the app, sign in, and click whatever category. Like let's say they went to the dental or the cardiologist or anything like that. In the long term, we're expanding, as Ruben said, we're going to be expanding into physical hospitals. So of course, older generations that prefer seeing real doctors in person will also be able to be given that opportunity. But the thing that connects them both is no matter if you're seeing someone virtually or in person, it'll still take no more than 2 clicks. As well as the feature that he just showed with family access, as well as if someone doesn't want to use the internet or they're not as tech savvy, you can a younger person or the caretaker can always share the access and to the older person, and they will be able to see it just as easily.
I didn't see much about collaborations. What sorts of partnerships are you going to need to do this? For example, the people who do digital health records that are already in all the doctors' offices and clinics in the world.
I'm already on my chart. Why do I care about DropDoc?
Yeah, so I can take this question. If you move to the competitor landscape, you can see that there are competitors in the market, such as, say, if you were going to store your personal records in Google Drive or Microsoft Office. However, these methods of record keeping are, while they're large and integrated, and most of us use them for school or work already, they're not tailored to local privacy laws. So if you've moved or even have moved between care providers or using different hospitals, I know we've moved away from home, and so we've seen different doctors and everything. It's hard to track the data. And so you can see there's some that are tailored to local privacy laws. However, they're small and not quite integrated. And so going back to your question, just to clarify, you're asking how exactly we can compete with like data usage platforms such as MyChart. And I think that we've all experienced this personally because MyChart is specific to only certain providers and certain hospitals. However, most of the time you're not going to be with the same hospital or provider your whole life. You've switched between doctors, you switch between hospitals, you move different states, different countries even. And so there's no platform currently that can integrate everything. So you might be using MyChart for only your hospital and typical like medical needs, however not for your dental needs. And so our solution of DropDoc will be a central place, no matter which country you move to or where you are, for all of your needs across different providers and different healthcare industries.
How do you address medical tourism as far as local privacy laws? So there's a lot of people who go to Brazil, to Mexico, to India for procedures. I am a citizen of country X and I'm going to India.
Mm-hmm.
What now? Where's my data?
So actually Korea is the one that comes to mind. South Korea is where a lot of people get hair transplant surgeries, right, that are illegal in the United States. The point of DropDoc, I want to be clear, is because we're already decentralized and because we're already global, going from country to country and complying with their local laws isn't as much of a challenge as it would be for something like MyChart, as it would be for something like Google Drive or the Microsoft Office. Right? Because we have people in these local areas that are already attuned to what those laws are, it's less of a barrier to do that than it would be. I hope that answers it.
Just for what it's worth, all these laws like HIPAA and its equivalents around the world, that governs what the providers have to do to protect your data.
Right.
You as a consumer owning your data on DropDoc, you don't have to comply with anything. You can do whatever the heck you want. You can share it on Instagram if you want to.
Right.
It's more for the provider need than, yeah.
Yours is GDPR more than HIPAA. But no, I think this is fantastic, and I agree with Ken. Like, this is, to me, just supremely innovative and creative. And, you know, again, I'm just in awe of what you can do in 48 hours. You know, I think you're onto something, in the sense that, you know, everybody else wants to stick to the cloud computing kind of, you know, document storage, office space landscape. whereas you guys like threw that in the trash and just went all over here. So really, really well done, and I think you know, shared your workload really well together. And you know, I think in the competitor landscape, what came to my mind when you were asking that question was insurance companies. There's not a lot of global ones, but they're fewer and fewer and fewer every single year. I mean, you got Aetna and Blue Cross just dominating. And, you know, as opposed to hospital groups, you go after insurance companies. So really, really well done.
You guys might want to think about pursuing this further as a brand new startup company, just licensing the Dropbox platform.
Are we getting in as partners on this?
How much are you willing to invest?
That feedback was my contribution. I don't know about you. I'd also consider defense companies. I don't know if you know, I don't know where you're from, I don't want to know yet, but here in San Diego we pride ourselves with Viasat, and part of their arena is the defense space and getting internet connections into really hard to reach places in Africa and Latin America. And so I think that would have answered my question about your internet connectivity.
What was it called again?
Viasat.
Not to contest with your compliment, but the reason that we wouldn't do a startup company, I want to reiterate again, our unique position here, the reason that this works is because Dropbox is already big and integrated. There are plenty of startups trying to do it, but nothing is integrated the same way that this opportunity is. So.
You sell it to them, that's all.
I'll take the call.
Great job. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Very imaginative.